You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 295. Are you kidding me? 295 of Central Indiana's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell here, joined by executive video producer, audio engineer, lighting technician, Zach Burcham, my forever host, Mr. Dakota Davis, and his entire family. What do we have planned here, Dakota?
Today's episode features Mr. Andrew Bowman. Andrew is a longtime Patreon member, and we are going to be talking to him about the storms that have been rolling across the Midwest. He is a camping expert, so we called him in. And then at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about tax season, all of the taxes that the government levies on us, and even potentially a new public safety answering point tax that could be coming to Henry County, Indiana. So make sure you stick around until the end of the show.
This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. Worst case scenario, we send you home with a toddler. Dakota, what did we learn in Patreon today?
Patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. That's where you can go to support the show on a monthly basis every month. That is where you can go and listen to, you can hear about what all the background noise is. We'll just keep it a secret for now. You have to join Patreon to
If you're
figure
watching
out
the
what that
live
was
stream,
about.
you'll see him in about 10 seconds.
Yeah. It's not a very good secret.
We talked a lot. We talked about avian, raising avian.
Horrible and dumb ways to die.
Well, yeah. I was thinking of a delicate way to phrase it, but that's true.
Expired poultry.
Expired poultry. We talked a little bit about ducks and Jeremiah's experience with them, and we came to the conclusion that I'm going to be getting some rabbits.
You're giving up on all birds.
Yep.
Zach, you may want to mute off the laptop, mute the sound coming back through it, because I think it's slightly feeding back out, potentially. Just in case. We do need to say thank you to the folks that help put the show on the air each and every month. You can sign up and join at any level, such as Andrew does. And after 3 years, we invite you on the show.
It took a while, but
yeah, but
it adds up.
You get your invite. You got you got like 3 days notice. That's a lot for us right now.
Tomorrow's a holiday. We had nothing better going on. And we're like, let's go see them.
Let's go do it.
Do it.
If you're $50 or more a month, you get thanked at the top of each and every episode. Those folks would be Christy Avery of Fort Wayne, Indiana, your Norwex representative, Jonathan Phillips of Andy Moore Buick GMC over in Fishers, but also one of your leading candidates for the Newcastle City Council. And one of our crowd favorites, Anthony Meyer, he has been dealing the Bud Light memes all week, and we've been here for it. It's been fantastic.
That's right. We also have some merchandise. If you need some merchandise, you can send an email to Dakota@bosshogofliberty.com or Jeremiah@bosshogofliberty.com, and then we will send you over to Audrey Davis, and she will get your shirts, sweatshirts, etc. printed.
Getting
all right.
mugged.
Andrew, why don't we introduce you to the
not?
The listeners of the show? Tell us about why you're a camping expert, first of all, and a little bit of background about yourself.
Weren't you supposed to wear some sort of a sash tonight? So that
No,
you
I don't
your
have any of
authority?
that stuff anymore, actually.
You got rid of it all?
Yeah, no. My wife is in the corner telling me I'm lying. Don't let the truth
Did she
get
throw
in
it
the way
away?
of a good story.
You're an Eagle Scout, and she threw all your stuff away.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's all tucked away in a corner, actually. No, so I was kind of a band nerd, and then I joined Scouts, and so I have years of camping experience. And I was doing the math the other day. I've tent camping over 300 nights, but I worked at summer camp, so that kind of like negates, like, because summer camp tent camping was not like, the rugged stuff. You're on a platform and a canvas thing and all that fun stuff. And then I ran the summer camp. Yeah. It's like a deck and then a nice big 12 by 12 canvas tent with electricity.
Worse than sleeping on the dirt.
No, it was nice. It was like the Taj Mahal of terrible
have
child labor conditions.
Did you have like sleeping pads?
Yeah, like we could bring a cot. And like some of the guys would bring like twin beds and just put them in there. Yeah, and then we would rig it up to it just be like their apartment in college, and they just move everything into this little
mini fridge.
Yeah, mini fridge, everything. Some guys would bring like little air conditioning units, so it counts, but it doesn't count. And then so I ran the summer camp out there in Clay County for several years as the camp director. So storms and camping are like my biggest fear. So the events that took place last weekend, it's like it brings back memories of like my first summer camp experience. They pulled us from our campsites. They got us to come down to the dining hall because it was really bad weather. And they're like, you don't need to be in a tent during this storm, limbs and lightning and stuff. We need to get you down to the dining hall. And I remember, like laying there on the cold wooden floor with fans blowing like, oh, this is how I die at 11 years old. This is it. But yeah, so I'd done a lot of camping. And then Megan and I, during COVID, we bought a camper off of Marketplace to see if we would enjoy it. We went, I think 14, 15 weekends that year. And then we upgraded our camper last year, and it's just an enjoyable time. But the day job, we own a lawn care company out there in the Terre Haute area. So, serve about 6 counties out there. So camping, taxes, I can talk all night about that.
You're good.
I did put originally in the show notes before they got too long and I had to delete some stuff. I had some of that stuff written down under your bullet point. Patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. You get show notes ahead of time. And I had, your business on there. And then at the very end, I said, has generally just been outside a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. if we'd rather be outside than stuck in the house. So
yeah. Storm season is a busy season for me. They're money makers for me, but I also don't like them. So it's this double-edged sword where it's like I'm going to be out working, I'm going to be making money, and then at the other point it's like I'm going to be out working and it's storming and awful.
It's not a nice, beautiful day at work. It's I'm getting rained on and people are out of power. And
sometimes a squirrel will take something out and it'll be a beautiful day and you'll have a great day fixing stuff and doing things outside on a beautiful day. Something gets taken out by lightning.
It's
a bad day.
It's not nice. Although there are times where it's only bad for like 2 hours. This nasty storm comes through and then it's beautiful springtime again.
Right.
As well. It can go both ways.
Well, what was interesting is that I didn't get a single call Friday night for the storm front that came through that night. I didn't get a single call on Saturday whenever we had 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts. But as soon as I woke up on Sunday, my phone rang and they were like, we had a lot of stuff happen Friday night and Saturday, and we're getting to it now. We need you to come in. So it was like the first beautiful day. I don't know if you remember Sunday.
It was so nice.
It was a gorgeous day, and it was like the first really nice day that we've had in a couple weeks, and I was like really looking forward to doing some stuff outside. I worked for almost 13 hours. I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. This is insane.
So, Zach, your family and my family both do 40 to 50 to 55 nights a year in the campers as well. So this is our spring, summer, and fall activity.
Yeah,
being out in the woods and it feels at this point like it's a near-death experience every weekend.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I went spring break and I towed the camper down, stayed under some trees as a storm blew through in Kentucky, and then the next day towed like 4 hours, about 200 miles with like 25 to 35 mile an hour winds. And I was like, this is just it was not a fun day. And then it got worse. Other things happened, but I got hit by a semi.
So we can't just back into that
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
That's what he did.
Got hit by a semi.
I got lightly tapped, and they're denying any responsibility. But yeah, I was in a traffic jam on 75, and a semi just slow rolled back into me, and I couldn't like back out of the way because I was like towing a camper and I had like a $200,000 Super C right behind me. That I was well aware of.
So now you're in a pissing match with their semi.
They just said it's your word against his word, and in that regard, it's not our problem. Because I didn't have a dash cam. I couldn't track witnesses down because I was on an interstate, and their driver just left.
Sounds like a you problem, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
You got the plate number and you got the driver.
I got the plate and everything. They even, he's a trainee. He was like, of course he didn't know it was his fault, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if it wasn't for the grace of God and Andrew's shitty winterizing, you might have been at McCormick's Creek last weekend.
So there's a really good possibility of that. McCormick's Creek is like our home campground because it's about a 40-minute drive from driveway to campground. And my Facebook memories popped up last year and the year before. Same weekend, we're at McCormick's Creek. And so, idiot me, brand new camper this last year. I thought I had everything winterized perfectly, and we got it ready to go 2 weeks ago to go to Spring Mill. Start putting water in it. I open the door, and there's just this river going down the middle. I'm like, that's not supposed to happen. So we don't have a hot water heater right now. A little tiny crack will do that. So.
Well, and you told me you were going to try to get it welded, and I said, my God.
It's still sitting in the driveway. I'm not welding it. I'm not having the guy weld it. We're just going to replace it, be done with it, put it in, not risk the... Once you said, oh, yeah, that thing could blow up, I just had this terrible thought.
I've seen it.
I'll spend the $300 to just replace the tank.
It's not a common enough occurrence. I've seen it multiple times, but I have seen a picture of what happens when one of those explodes, and it is not good.
Yeah. And our heater's right under where the bunk is, where he's going to be sleeping. So
in my camper, it's under Jackson's bed. So
ours is just in the kitchen. It would only be traumatic for everybody around. It probably wouldn't lead to scalding burns unless you were on the couch.
So you said McCormick's Creek, and there was a that's in Spencer, Indiana, and there was a direct hit from a E3 tornado that hit McCormick's Creek campground, totaled,
wiped it out,
dozens of campers.
Yeah,
and
it pretty well came straight through the campground.
Yeah.
The accounts that we have, it's kind of weird. So we are Zach and Andrew and myself are all in a number of Facebook groups, Indiana Facebook groups that are getting live updates from people that are in McCormick's Creek, mostly the next day, because I tried to sleep through the events. Sarah was watching it on the TV, and my brother had a very big bet on the girls' Iowa basketball game. I think he had $200 on Iowa winning. So every 3 minutes, I was getting another text message at midnight from him and his group text, because I think he was going to pay out like $1,200 if they won. And Iowa did win their game. But between my phone giving me weather alerts, Sarah watching every weather issue between Arkansas and Indiana, and then my brother's group chat, I was not sleeping very well. But I tried to sleep through it. But you would see these updates come through, and it was the first report was, the campground was wiped out, but everybody's fine. Like everybody got out. It was fine. They had warning, and they went to the bathrooms or whatever. And it sounds like people got alerts on their phones, and then they did have some sort of an alert system in the campground, like a siren went off, and people went to the bathrooms. The bathhouses is generally where you're supposed to bail out to, and that worked for almost everybody. But then there was, I guess the media reports started coming out that, hey, everybody's fine. And the people that wound up dying, the family was like, we haven't heard from our people yet. And it sounds like they just goofed up. Like the public information that came out was not accurate.
Well, you looked at the pictures. I actually would love, I asked in one group before they knew that there were fatalities, and they said everybody's okay. I'm like, I'm only asking this because everybody's okay. I really genuinely was curious if any RV survived, because I didn't see a picture. There was one maybe that might have been salvageable, but you couldn't see the back end of it. But it was salvageable by meaning it was upright, and in the front part of it, which was a struggle for most of them. Most of them were on their side. One of them was just on his lid. One didn't have there was a chassis and there was a camper somewhere, but they were no longer together. But there's one hybrid that like the only damage, they didn't like any damage, just like the door was open, but there was like stuff laying on it. But yeah, I'd never, like, I was like, that campground got obliterated, and there weren't even like full height trees around left. They're all snapped off at the middle.
That's the really creepy thing for Megan and I to see those pictures, because when I say it's our home campground, like we go there 2, 3, 4 times a year. So like seeing those pictures.
Sarah and I camped there in July. I mean, it's same
those,
thing.
Those were some big trees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would even kind of like guessed that campground would have generally been okay, because it kind of feels like it was in a bowl, because you're completely canopied, and you feel like you're down in a low spot, and there's these huge trees everywhere. So yeah. And like I said, most of them are broken in half.
I think once you get to an F2, F3 tornado,
doesn't matter.
Yeah. You're not going to life. So we say all of this with the expectation of, yes, it's the terrible thing happened. Life's full of risks, right? You could be, a tornado could come through downtown Newcastle. It could come through Spencer, Indiana. There's no place you're going to go that you're going to hide. All you can do is kind of go through best practices. And when an F3 tornado is coming through, you need, no trailer, no camper, even a mobile home or a poorly built house is not going to be a place to stay.
Right.
You've got to get to another location at that point.
I think they even evacuated the cabins and had all those people go to the inn. So yeah, they were trying to get everybody out of everything, and I think everybody in the inn was in the basement. Even they were full tilt trying to get everybody somewhere.
So you
safe.
mentioned they evacuated the cabins, and that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the role that the state parks have in those situations. Do we expect the workers to go around and knock on every camper and say, hey, there's a high wind advisory or a severe thunderstorm warning, or they said it's going to be arriving in 6 minutes, a severe thunderstorm.
Yeah. My experience,
they do their best. They do their best to actually do that.
It's not. They're not coming to you 5 minutes before.
No,
but the experience I've had, I've been at. I was at Mound State Park in Anderson in 2020. Pretty much this weekend again. I think 3 years ago this weekend. This is the beginning of tornado season, guys. You're in it. Late March is pretty much the start of it in central Indiana. The DNR officer came to our site and said, hey, actually at the time it was, hey, the bathroom's closed, so we don't really have a place for you to go. So you're here at your own risk, essentially. But normally it is, hey, go to this structure or that structure and be aware. That's the biggest thing you can do. At Bluffton last weekend, so Wabash State Park, it was go to the pit toilets across from you. It was a concrete structure. Wasn't exactly the most pleasant place to have to be sent to, but those are the instructions you got when you checked in. So if there was a safety problem, you would get that. My bigger quarrel is today I was meeting with a customer today at lunch, and Zach, you were with me last October where a tree fell down. October, it was the spooktacular weekend at Summit Lake, and a dead tree fell down and threw a camper at Summit Lake. Heard of another instance, firsthand account, where a guy was out there fishing on his boat. He heard another crack and a whack, and another camper got hit at Summit Lake this last weekend, where you've got these dead trees, and I'm not sure that the state is doing what they need to do to get dead trees and limbs out of parks. I'm sure it's probably a never-ending problem with the emerald ash borer and everything else, but that's the part that's the most frustrating to me. F3 tornado comes through. There's no preventing that. There's no amount of preventive maintenance. That's just act of God stuff, right? But if it's going to be a 40, 50 mile an hour windy day, you would hope that they've done something about the dead limbs and dead trees.
Because when we're talking about, like, if you just have a wind advisory, which is typically they start giving out wind advisories at 40 mile per hour gusts. So that type of wind, you're not going to break off a healthy limb and send it pummeling down. It's something dead and probably should have been known about. So you're not saying that they need to go out and they need to clear all the trees that are within 40 feet of a campsite.
No,
you're just saying,
pick and
keep
choose.
the trees healthy, right? And keep the trees healthy and cut off the dead limbs as they arrive.
And it should be easy to identify what those limbs and what those trees are. And just in the first 5 minutes of parking your camper at a site, you look around and just do a quick little survey of what's around you. And maybe that's just habit of, tent camping and backpacking and stuff that I've done. You don't want to set up your site underneath a dead tree.
Widowmaker, yeah.
Right.
And in the wintertime, it's more difficult. But once you get to May,
you can tell.
Man, you can look at the tree that doesn't have leaves on it, or the bark is gone and there's no leaves on it. It's a problem. And that's where you hope, hey, the park management's coming out there and putting red X's on stuff so that they know what trees to come take out. And they were doing a great job of that in Bluffton. Last weekend at Wabash, there were a bunch of trees that they had taken down over the winter, and they were cleaning up, and they were getting after it.
So you just said something about the emerald ash borer taking out the ash trees, and when 8 years ago we really started tracking ash trees, and we do ash tree treatments through our lawn service, and the DNR was like, hey, anytime you find an ash tree that's infected, let us know. We'll put it in our database. 6 months later, they were so overwhelmed. They're like, yeah, we shut that down because we just can't keep up.
We gave up.
So the invasive pests that are in our area is really causing a headache for them to try and keep up with, taking care of that dead tree and dead limbs. And
I'm glad you mentioned the thing about backpacking, because that is I used to do a lot of backpacking, and it's something that you always watch out for. Even if you're on a trail and you're looking for a place to set up your tent, it's you're always looking up, right? Looking around, making sure that there's no dead trees, there's no dead limbs. And if there is, it's crap, got to move somewhere else. You're confined to a campsite.
You can't move your camper.
That's the only one that you got. Right. And you're just kind of trusting that the state park has the person who manages the campground is kind of taking care of that stuff. You don't have that much.
If you've paid
freedom.
$70 or $80 for your assigned spot for the weekend, right? You expect it to be safe and ready to go. Yes, there's some personal responsibility to say, hey, I need to make sure that I don't put myself in a bad spot. But you also know, this thing's been rented out every weekend all year long. It should be good to go. If we're looking for tips for people, I guess, as you're going in, Zach, they always have backup campsites, right? So if you've got a spot that you feel unsafe, or it's full of water, or the electric doesn't work, they've got sites to switch to if you have to.
It might not be a bad idea if you see a dead tree to bring it to their attention and be like, hey, I'm not comfortable with the site. There's a dead tree right there. And then maybe, because at times we kind of wonder, because the tree we saw fall in the camper, it was one of 5 or 6 dead trees. We were well, that one needs to come down, and that one needs to come down, and that one. And I had spray paint with me because I helped mark up a 5K course. I was really tempted to just start going around, just marking them myself.
I think that's what we should do. We're gonna vigilante style. We're just start putting X's on stuff that needs to go.
I was gonna say, start bringing either climbing hooks and a climbing saw, or bring your pole saw with you and hope it's
you start
long
cutting on trees, you're going to go to prison.
I was at a private
They just see me up there, up in the 30 feet.
If you have a hard hat on, just tell them you know what you're doing.
Hard hat, safety vest. I'm a volunteer arborist.
Bob gave me permission, so we're good.
I was at a private campground in Tennessee, and it was interesting. All of those trees have been topped recently, and I talked to the owner because he's an interesting guy. He's kind of rolling around busy, and I said, "Hey, you're really aggressive about keeping the tree." And he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "The problem with these trees are, I think he said they were water maples or something like that." He's like, "They have an average lifespan of 50 years, and these are 52 years old." He knew when they've been planted because he owned the campground the whole time. So he's very just vigilant about checking him because he doesn't want him to fall on anybody, and he's very aware of the status of the tree. He's like, yeah, one of them looked kind of so we went up and took a spike and hit it, and it went all the way through the base of the tree and went out the other side. He's like, well, this one's coming down. But he was, and obviously that's a different situation than when you cut a state park campground into an existing woods like Summit Lake does on a back loop. But yeah, it's one of those things where somebody needs to just go around and be checking that kind of all year.
That's why I've taken down 3 sugar maple trees in my house that was built in the late 60s. That's the same exact thing. That they're all at that age where they're starting to fall apart and they need to go. My other advice, I guess, is plant oak trees. They don't move. Those oak trees those will live 200 years. That maple tree is you may outlive that oak tree if you're young enough. If you're Dakota's age, you'll probably outlive a maple tree.
We have a massive, massive oak tree in front of in the front yard of our house, and it's got one limb that is kind of over the garage, And I'm always like, that thing goes. And it's like, that tree's so freaking solid. Like, it's had dead limbs on the end, and it's amazing what the oak tree will do. It's like, it removes that section on its own. It's like, oh, that part's dying. We're just gonna grow around it, and that part will fall off, but the rest of the limb will stay healthy.
Yeah.
They're hardy.
The other tip that I have, and that I think most of the country had the same idea, because weather radios were really hard to find on Amazon.com. I did get one, but the one I wanted to get was back ordered for like 4 more weeks. But I got myself about a $70 weather radio that's supposed to have all kinds of channels, and it'll come up. I'm trying to grab it without spilling my Coors Original. I'm not allowed to drink Bud Light anymore. Sarah said, I don't know what happened, but I can't have Bud Light. Andrew, you can laugh. It's okay.
Oh, I'm laughing.
It's got a full battery.
It's a brand new fancy one. I made her program it. I don't know where we're going to put it in the camper.
Still have the
hangable,
screen protector on it?
Yeah. You want to peel that off? Peel off the screen protector? But it's like $60-$70, and it runs on battery power too. So these, I guess the advantage of these is that you take things into your own hands again. Where if you don't have if you're not in cell phone reception area, weather radio should work.
And that's one thing that we've seen a lot over the last couple of days is complaints or suggestions of the state needs to improve cell service. They need to improve.
We need Wi-Fi in the parks.
And that, so when we pack up, get in the camper, and get to the state park, the last thing we really care about is cell phone service and Wi-Fi. We go to get away from that kind of thing, and having a backup is a weather radio shouldn't be your backup when you're camping with limited cell service. That should be your priority of how you're going to get that information. And I don't feel like it's the state's responsibility to provide that type of infrastructure of, making your campground totally wireless and offering 5G and all that fun stuff. Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, it would probably benefit some people. But I think at the end of the day, though, some people are still going to make their own decision.
I think it's
on
also
what they want to do.
I think people underestimate how much that would cost.
Oh, yeah.
Because chances are, that's a huge deal now. A lot of people are like full timing in the remote work or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I can't." And it's like Spring Mill. It was a little bit better this last year.
There's like 2 campsites where we have
Spring
service
Mill
in
is
there.
an absolute dead zone. Like, I tried to send a text message, and 47 minutes later, it's still going. It's still trying. It's efforting. But so that means you're having to run some kind of internet line to the. In theory, if it's gotten in, they've got internet.
Meanwhile, Prophetstown actually had Wi-Fi in the park this week.
Yeah, and then you got to run it to the campground, and then you have to have it be strong enough to handle
200 or 300 sites.
I don't know about the parks I've been into that do you have good cell phone reception. It's usually horrible between like 7 and 10
because we're all streaming Toy Story.
Everybody's streaming. Yeah, everybody's got their kids streaming on the Roku or their Chromecast, and so then you have to have it be able to handle. And like Summit Lake wouldn't be a huge issue, but if you go to like Patoka or like Mounds SRA or just the general Whitewater area where there's like 550 sites within a couple miles of each other, they bog down cell phone towers. And I would also wonder, another local thing, Newcastle had all of its cell phone signals obliterated by one guy apparently who didn't dial 811. And for like a day and a half, for 18 hours.
We had a fiber line that paralyzed our community.
A line got cut on Monday afternoon, and it didn't come back on till like middle of the afternoon on Tuesday. So guess what? That's all it would take. And can you imagine if you threw a cell phone like that storm McCormick's Creek, if they're up on a hill nearby was a cell phone tower? I wonder how it does with a tornado coming in.
So INDOT sent the East Central Indiana AT&T emergency repeater to McCormick's Creek. So I was thinking, man, if that tornado hadn't come through, they probably would have rolled that out over here, and our community would have had 5G.
I mean, and it wasn't.
But they sent all those resources out into tornado relief.
Yeah, that day I was at work that morning, and I'm like, every morning try to figure out what I'm going to be doing that day and set up my whole schedule, and we're all talking about how no one has cell signal, and then figured out what the issue was. I was like, well, guess I'm working in Greenfield today.
Oh yeah, I was sitting. My wife called me and she's like, "Are you having a hard time with your phone?" I was sitting on my front porch. I'm like, "No, it's fine. My phone does Wi-Fi calling." I went to the city council meeting and it wasn't like, "Oh, your cell phone reception." I had no like it was an X with no bars, and I was like, "Whoa, this is like." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll just get home." But there are people there are a lot of people I think that don't have home internet. They do all of their like internet stuff through their phone, and they were losing their minds. It didn't come back on till like 2 or 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon.
And they sent out that text saying 1830 that for the restoration time. So you're like, it's going to be gone for 24 hours?
What are we going to do?
Newcastle nearly imploded. Yeah.
It was a crisis.
I should have joined your chatter page.
AT&T were both out. Yeah, we had some, 4 communities in Indiana got hit by tornadoes, but we had one fiber line cut.
And that was it.
It was
We
the end of
lost
us.
our line, yeah.
We had...
Don't call 911 and ask about your cell phone signal.
Yeah.
They had to say that.
Yeah, we can't do anything about it for you guys. The AT&T was out, Verizon was out, and if we could find any T-Mobile customers, we would have checked with them to see if they were out, but nobody uses T-Mobile over here. I told Galt, I said, finally, it took like 15 hours for us to find the first T-Mobile customer that posted in a community group saying, "Hey, T-Mobile's out. Does anybody know what's going on?"
Then like...
No, that's just T-Mobile.
Well, I guess I'll just refer to them by their name on the show. Brisket Wireless. Apparently, if you like went to the store, they're like, "There's nothing wrong. We don't know what's wrong with your phone." They're like giving out new SIM cards, and it's like, how in a hole did you have to be to not know that cell phone towers are just down?
Like, try this new SIM card. Well, this
sell
SIM
you-
card's not working either.
Let me sell you a new iPhone today,
That's your
guys.
phone. You just need a new phone.
It was nice when I left for work.
So you
on
talk
Tuesday.
about adding cell towers and stuff like that, but like, so where we live in Clay County, just north of us in Park County is Raccoon Lake, Turkey Run, and Shades. But in Park County, for some strange reason years ago, they have a deal that only AT&T towers can be put up in Park County. So as soon as like we get just a little bit into Park County, our Verizon is gone, right? So like even if they had the opportunity to expand like a Verizon network up there, you're not getting anything. So like whenever we go to Raccoon Lake, like go boating, you're out of luck until you get back into Clay County.
Well, you got to
That's
have
hilarious.
devices on all of the networks, Andrew.
Most of our towers here in the Newcastle area
Mr.
are
3 phones.
You get to Jeremiah's life.
It has gotten so complicated.
most of the towers here are
Like-
AT&T towers, but they can still use them.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
they
what
can
my
still
understanding
use
was.
the
It was an AT&T tower that was down, but like Verizon piggybacks off of it.
Right.
And then there's a couple like smaller lines that were feeding some of the towers, and that's why some people they were just the lucky ones that had like glabbed onto a tower that had a little bit of bandwidth left, but it wasn't enough to support the whole town.
I had so we're going to transition into this tax season portion of the show that Dakota has put together. My property tax bill came, and you're talking about the complications. I do my own escrow account because I want to be in control, but I have accounts all over town for different things. I put things in different buckets, and normally it works just fine. And then I couldn't remember how to change the amount of money that I'm sending from one bank to the other to pay my property taxes. And my bill went up like $300 a year, so I needed like $25 more a month to start transferring over. And I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out how in the hell to change that, because it's an account. I don't log in very often to do it. You pay a bill twice a year or whatever.
Without giving
I was
too much
completely
detail,
confused.
Jeremiah's banking life is so complicated. I'm surprised he hasn't been like audited by like Joe Biden himself, or just like there's got to be something going on here. This is way too complicated.
He started
Does this man
shaking
have
when they
10
arraigned
checking
Trump.
Yeah, this has got to be some kind of.
I'm next.
It's got to be. He's just like a Cayman Island and a Swedish bank account away from being like a mobster.
10 checking accounts, 4 savings accounts,
Every
18 credit cards.
and they all have $14 in them. And they all. But yeah, I think most every bank in town I have some sort of account at, or credit union or whatever. All right, Dakota, let's talk about taxation as theft. This is a libertarian podcast network, so this is the groove.
I got my property tax bill in the mail yesterday. I saw the envelope and I was like, oh boy, here we go.
You hadn't already looked at Beacon to see how much it went up?
No.
I'm doing that right now.
And
Well, Andrew's face is about to change. He's going to get pissed off.
yeah, you gotta be
Okay,
very
we need to
frustrated.
go home.
And I opened up my bill and I was like, God dang. Who would have thought one chicken coop would have raised my property value so much?
25% increase.
I'm glad he found that before he gave me some free eggs, or after he gave me the free eggs.
You went about $500 a year for the year, right? Is that what your increase was? Yep. Ours went up about $300, and it has doubled since 2018.
Mine went up 20% year over year from last year to this year.
What? And saying the Wish TV it was the Capitol Chronicle article. Which, by the way, if you guys are interested in the state house government, the Capitol Chronicle is a newer publication that's going on in the state of Indiana, and they're covering everything that's going on in the state house all the time. Very valuable source of information. But anyway, they were saying that the average property tax bill had gone up like $260 across the state of Indiana, which is huge if you consider that that's the average.
So I'm not going to say name names, but my mother-in-law is the treasurer down in Lawrence County, and they sent out the tax bills and everything. And Megan has been on the phone with her mom every day. This is horrible. This is horrible. And we're like, well, you could have retired, but you chose this.
The treasurer doesn't decide.
No, but the townsfolk don't care.
The bills say that you have to pay her.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're taking out all their frustration and anger on her.
Our bills showed up, and I don't know why it happened, but I assume that it's the bank that collects it. I think First Merchants Bank might. They're just off camera. There's a toddler grabbing his first Coors beer
because on camera,
thank you.
A few moments ago, it looked like you handed it to him because he came up.
It's his now,
and kind of reached, and then you picked the beer up and moved it off camera. So that it were just plausible deniability. He didn't notice it away.
He's just playing with that sweet ball aluminum can that looks like Sterling Marling could drive it. Oh, thank you, Jackson. Look at that. Water delivery service.
So how much did your taxes go up by dollar amount? Was it
480 something?
So you guys are always talking about how great it is to live in Henry County. My taxes went up $10.47.
So here's what actually happened.
Clay County finally got us beat on
Posey Township right here.
My parents live in Posey Township, Rush County. Tornado victims last year. So the tax rate actually went down in Henry Township, not City of Newcastle, but Henry Township. Our rate went down probably because we tried to get rid of our fire department. But
yeah,
but
tried real hard.
That's another day's story, or we would be on all night. The assessed value shot up dramatically, and that's the root cause of all these increases.
All these people that went out and spent way too much money on houses in the last 3 years.
Everybody got COVID rich, and they got tired of being inside the walls of their home, and the price of houses have gone up, and now your assessed values are tracking with that.
And when State Senator Jeff Rotz came on, we did talk to him about it because there was a bill that was actually introduced to the Ways and Means Committee, and it dealt with the way that assessments are done and the way that property taxes are calculated. If you have the show notes, if you're a Patreon member, then there's an article in there. Basically, from the Capitol Chronicle, they were saying they weren't too hopeful that anything was really going to be happening this year. And it was going to be going to be done for 4 years. And it was incrementally going to be going up through this 4-year period to where it is now. And I think the whole idea was trying to mitigate the insane increases in property values that we saw during the COVID time frame, and waiting for the market to level back out and assessed values to kind of level out and hopefully return to normal over a 4-year period.
The form that came this year is actually different because it does show you now what the maximum tax bill could be for your property, where it's like, hey, we saved you, because mine's $200 under the cap. If the rate actually could have stung me for another $200 if they wanted to. If budgets had gone up, they could still theoretically, constitutionally, get another $200 a year out of me.
Yeah, you guys sent over your tax bills, and I'm like, holy crap! Because ours is $213 every 6 months. and that's it.
That's all your property taxes?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, $400 a year.
Yours isn't a whole lot less than mine. Mine's pretty low, but I don't have acreage though. I'm in the middle of a town.
Yeah.
Our bill, I know we have not discussed this, and I haven't fleshed this one out whatsoever. But the conservation district, which is basically our flood control, which pays for Westwood, and we've got a number of reservoirs that are included in the Big Blue River Conservation District. I assume they spent some money because that went up like 58% year over year. So their assessment, the value that they're charging, which goes directly onto that bill, which is not a part of the cap, it's just that district gets to tack onto the bill. That number went up significantly.
I got a letter 2 years ago in the mail warning me that my my property tax bill would be going up because of the Conservancy District. And
Yeah, among other things, and it's complicated. And honestly,
there's a warning at least.
I'm not criticizing any local official over the way the tax structure works. It's more of an awareness and an understanding. And if you don't like the way things work, we're explaining it. We'll talk through it, and you guys can talk to your local officials or your state representatives. What I've determined in a lot of these situations is that local government's is doing what they have to do based upon the chair you're in. You have very limited tools to actually make adjustments. All that you can do is you can raise the tax rate, or you can try to cut something. Well, if you're trying to cut something, you're cutting a service that the community is expecting at this point, or cutting a program, and there's going to be a lot of screaming, foaming of the mouth, et cetera, et cetera. The state generally, in my opinion, my understanding, is that they have been building massive cash reserves. And anytime there's been a tax increase, they pass a rule that allows the locals to try to make up for it with a local increase of some sort, which is what we saw this week in Henry County, Dakota,
Right.
with this 911 conversation.
Yeah, and that was, if you get the Courier Times, that was in Wednesday's paper, it was the front page. The big headline was money running out for county dispatch. And that was from the dispatch director, Butch Baker. He came on and told...
Ball Hog alum.
He came to the Henry County Council and he told them that the dispatch center would be unfunded by the year 2026 unless they adopted a new tax, which is called the Public Safety Answering Point Tax, or the PSAP tax, as I'm going to dub it here today.
And this is where I don't understand what's happened, because we've had essentially Newcastle and Henry County have had 911 service for the community since about 1990 or so. So since my wife was born, we've had a functional 911 service, and there is a tax. There's a tax. Before that, you had to just stick your head outside.
Moment of silence for Jeff Gordon for a second.
Lightning McQueen just fell.
Our audience is down to Jeff.
Jeff won, though. Jeff 2's still up, and Dale.
Rainbow Jeff took a dive.
Dale's still standing tall.
And that was one thing. That's one thing that's here in the article. I did bring I'm an old man. I get a paper.
You steal that from work just like everybody else?
No, this is mine.
That's his paid subscription.
This is my paid subscription.
You use it to raise ducks on?
Audrey made me start getting a physical paper now so that she can take them to the animal shelter after the animal shelter told her that they were running out of newspapers for the dogs. But anyway, so it said in here that Mayor York had talked about a time before the 911 dispatch center existed, and you had to grab the phone book when there was an emergency and call the local fire department or police directly and hope that you had the right number. And
I'll tell you, actually what
now it would be easier because you could just save the number in your phone.
Actually, what used to happen was people would run for office. This is very old school county government. They would run for office, and it would be elect Harold Griffin for sheriff. And Harold would write on his thing, and it would say, dial this number for an emergency. And it would be to call the sheriff's department for an emergency. Before 911 existed, that's how you
see. We almost had something
and
similar.
it'd be like a refrigerator magnet
over in Clay County. So like with our business phone number, it was one number off from the Outback Steakhouse in Terre Haute. So all the time, it'd be a Friday at like 4:00. They'd do call ahead seating. I just got tired of it because I answered the phone for mom and dad, and I'd take their name and everything. I wonder how many people showed up to Outback expecting a
got you down
reservation.
Got you down, no problem.
Nope.
So essentially what's happening is the amount of funding that is going to come to these 911 services is reducing drastically. So it's going from hundreds of thousands of dollars a year down to tens of thousands of dollars a year. I don't know where this is going, but if you look at that phone bill you've been paying your entire existence, there's already a line item on there for 911, right? You're paying because you have a telephone. You're paying to have 911 coverage. Who's taking that money? Where's that at? And if that's not enough, and because Butch is telling us, hey, this is a user fee, which is fair. It would be an income tax essentially, like a 0.012% income tax edition,
0.12%,
which we just had a public safety income tax that passed 7-8 years ago, whatever, which was a 0.1% income tax that paid for whatever. You're going to do it again. And the council is being told, hey, this is the one way you're going to fix it. And if you want to plug this hole by 2026, you need to pass this by October of this year. Now we've got an emergency. So they've got 5 months to discuss it, and they need to put this tax rate in place.
Butch Baker said that
I hope that these guys listen and say, where the hell's the money going that we're paying on cell phone charges for the last 30 years or landline charges for 30 years?
Butch said that the PSAP tax would need to be enacted by October if Henry County hopes to have the money available to fund the dispatch center in 2026.
Is it on cell phones?
They need to,
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I was going to say, because if it was on landlines, there's your problem.
But
Right.
it's not just like cell phones. So like we have tablets for our technicians to go out. And I was looking through our phone bill, and there's a 911 tab.
Yeah, we all have 911 charges on every line.
tablet on an iPad that can't make a phone call or anything.
Right.
But since it gets data.
Yeah, but you can text with it or whatever. You can text 911 and it'll go. So the revenue's there. I just don't know where it's going. And that's the challenge I have before you tax me. And like I said a minute ago, everybody that's in Butch in his role, he has to go to the council and say, hey, I'm going to be out of money. Here's the tool in the toolbox that I've been told. But it's up to the council to say, hey, Jeff Rotz, hey, Corey Criswell, hey, guys, you've got to figure out where this money's at. Does the state have it, or what's the problem? Because now every one of these councils, just like we raised the taxes to pay for a jail, we raised the taxes to pay for new ambulances or whatever is going on, whatever we did with the public safety income tax. Now we're going to do it again for 911. We go crisis to crisis to crisis, and now all of a sudden our income tax in this county is going to be among the highest in the state. On top of us now being put to shame by Clay County, where our property taxes are 4 times what theirs are. Is your house worth like $14,000?
4 times. Mine's 10 times.
Well, I mean, it's brick.
And I have 3 less acres than he does.
So whenever we added on for our business, so like we run our business out of the back 3 acres of our property. So we've built a couple different additions out there, and we got our tax bill last year. We're like, whoa, that's big. And so we went over to the assessor's office, and they're like, yeah, well, doesn't that building have, I'm like, no, that's just like a big shed type thing. It's a 3-sided pole barn thing. Oh, well, that looked like from the satellite picture, it was all enclosed and it had heat and electricity. No, it didn't. So what we found out through a little bit of a frustration is just going and talking to somebody in person. They can help explain the process.
Yeah.
Pretty easily. And they were really easy to work with, and they got it adjusted a little bit. Now, there was like our office building, it's got electricity, heating, cooling, all that fun stuff. So yeah, we did have to take a slight hit for that type of improvement, but to explain things to a person, because sometimes you see the person drive by and they don't even get out of their vehicle. They're just like, yeah, they did X amount
Our
of dollars.
assessor's office is very good, and she will sit down and she will explain what's going on. But be warned that if you do try to challenge it, they're going to look at what it's worth, and the value of the property that they have may be wildly lower than what it would
right. So you have to go into it like
you
got to be careful.
If you look at that number and you want to bitch about what it says,
Be careful what you wish for.
yeah, you watch it, you go appraise your house and see what it's actually worth today. Even though you may have no intention of actually selling, say your house that you paid, you paid $50,000-$60,000 for it. Now it's worth $250,000. That cap on that makes it a $250,000 house. That's $2,500 a year. $200 a month in property taxes is what that turns out to be.
I'm blaming the people that spent insane, just Newcastle money on houses in Newcastle. Because I bet there's some people that are around. Like there's a particular house on the way to Jeremiah's end of town that went for a staggering number. I mean, absolutely unheard of number. I'm like, I wonder what their neighbor's. I should look up what their neighbor's property tax bill did this because I bet it was insane.
Now Dakota got on a roll today, and he thought this is Dakota. You want to explain what happened?
It was. I mean, I was paying my property taxes today. I also had to pay my vehicle registration fees.
And you thought all registrations in Indiana were due right now. At the same time, you have to file your federal taxes. You get your spring tax bill in the mail, and the sons of bitches make me pay for my license plates.
My whole life, my parents have been paying their vehicle registrations in April. My whole time I've had a vehicle, it's been coming in April. And I've always been paid it online. And whenever I log into my B&V account, it says registration's due in April.
Right. So the show notes come out today, and Dakota's like, and then these things are due too. And I'm like, oh, I'm editing this.
Yeah.
If you're a patron, I had actually provided a link. They are by your last name or the purpose of them, because mine, I believe, is in August or September.
Ours are February.
When the Morrells are due. But when I had a leased car, it was due in like January.
So I have a question then. Did you get a letter from the head of the license branch commissioner or whatever saying, hey, we sent you your bill, but it was wrong, so you're going to owe something different? Did you get that letter? Because we did.
I don't think so.
And then they sent us our statement after the due date. So it was like, if you pay before this date, you pay X number of dollars. But if you pay after this date, you have to pay a fine. Well, I didn't get my bill until after that. So I went to the license branch, and they're like, oh, sorry.
Please pay your fine.
Nothing we can do.
The position that government has taken on that in the past, just like when you file your federal taxes, Andrew, you have to know what you owe, and you have to pay it on time. Just because we screwed up the paperwork doesn't mean that it's not our problem.
The fun thing for us is we've got 7 trucks and 7 trailers, and so I tried to do it online once, and I got locked out of my own account, and so we have to go in and do it, and it was a mess.
I do it all online, and
You've got like what, 3 boats, 2 campers.
We have a ridiculous number of boats and trailers and campers.
Backup boat,
vehicles.
backup camper.
I have a trailer I haven't registered since 2020.
So I try to spread it out, and I log in about once a month and just say, okay, this is what we're doing this month. This is what we're renewing this month. So they will just be.
Sometimes they give you an option to renew for like 2 years at a time. They didn't give me that option this time, but I think that was because I was in the penalty box at being
You're
late.
in deep, deep trouble.
I didn't get that this
I was
time.
able to renew my driver's license, and it's good through 2030.
Wow.
Yeah. In 2030, I'm going to look so young on my driver's license because it just reprinted it. It just reprinted it. I'm good for ages. Zach's trying to pull his license out now to see how long he's good for.
Mine expires this year.
Ooh,
Meg's expires in 2 months.
I looked up the house the house I was looking at, their property taxes went up 643%.
How much?
600. The house that went for an exorbitant amount of money, their property taxes went up 643%.
That's a house you
now,
homestead on.
everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's staggering. It went from $248 a month to $1,600, or just a year to $1,600 a year. So but yeah, I mean, which is pretty significant, but yeah.
Mine expires in 2026, and I just got it renewed in November of 2021.
I think it happens at certain ages. Is it just like certain, because like it expires when you're like 18 or 21. There's one that expires when you're 21.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm not sure.
I was able to renew it online, and I think it's like within 2 years of the expiration. So I probably did it pretty early because I'm vain and I wanted the IndyCar on my driver's license because, that's cool to have. And I didn't want them to change the driver's license on me between now and when I got one. So I hurried up and said yes. So now I'm good through 2030.
I should check. I still got 2. They didn't take my old one when I renewed and got my real ID. So I have a real ID and I have a non-real ID.
All right. What else do you want to talk about, Dakota? We got kids running everywhere.
Oh, good. My son has been giving Megan Bowman all of his toys. This is what he does at home, too. If you're sitting on the couch, he just starts bringing every toy in the living room over to you and setting them on your lap.
He's going back for the Coors. Buddy?
Big fan of that Coors can. Big fan of that Coors can. All right, let's move into final thoughts. See where things go. What happens? Zach, you had a.
Don't put your thumb in there, Hudson.
Zach, you had a wonderful spring break. Yeah. I was confused by the local spring break calendar. I thought all the schools did them together, and this year
apparently not.
They are they're not on top of each other.
I think they're getting the current school break schedule is, in my mind, a bit excessive. And that is, when I was a kid, we got 2 days off for fall break, 2 weeks for Christmas break, and a week for spring break. Now they get a week for fall break, 2 weeks for Christmas break, and they might have even gotten at times 2 weeks and 2 days. And my mother is calling. She should know better.
Let's talk to her live on the air.
No. And,
a Denny Hamlin segment of Bumper Clear.
And then they get 2 weeks of spring break. And initially when they pitched that, they said, well, the second week will be built-in snow days.
Snow days.
But e-learnings come about, and snow days don't exist. They are there's no point. So, yeah, we did. So, yeah, apparently some of this, playing really, Blue River did they did a 7 school day spring break. They got off on a Thursday and then got the following week off too. But I've heard that some of them are changing away from that, and they're wanting to get done if they want to get done by Memorial Day, great. That would be great. But yeah, I find 2 weeks is a little bit excessive. But yeah, we were down last week, went to Tennessee. Horrible drive down, horrible drive back. But while I was down there, it was okay.
But at least it rained the whole time.
Oh my,
beautiful.
It was. Yeah, it was. I was under a wind advisory both of my major travel days. Both of the days I towed the most, I was in a wind advisory, which is great when you're driving towing a 28-foot box behind the world's largest SUV that's also catches wind like nobody's business. But and then when I got back, they've dug up my yard and my neighborhood looks like a war zone because they're doing
bad gopher problem, huh?
They're using utility. They're doing utility work. So I get to figure out how to hook my camper up tomorrow with a 7-foot deep hole right where my front tire of my truck goes when I hook up. They've just left a hole in the. It's 6 to 7 feet deep, just where I park my.
What kind of work's going on?
I think they're doing natural gas line work.
Oh, okay.
And what's real fun is they sent me a thing a month ago and hey, do you want to buy that insurance in case your gas lines fail? And then they come in and they're just it looks like Caddyshack. There's just holes everywhere, and there's just a barrel and it's through plywood over the top of them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to figuring that out.
Call your friends at the city and get a steel grate to lay over it so you can drive your camper over.
They got to still play it over one of the neighbors because it's part of his driveway. And their mind is they dug it up 3 days ago.
Screw them! It's your driveway too.
And one of them, I think, was one of the deeper ones. I was laughing because then we got all this rain because it stormed, and you couldn't tell the hole was there because it was completely full of water. I was like, this intersection normally kind of floods, and I'm like, it's not flooded because it's in there. And I was like, it's probably a 4x4 by 6 foot hole that is completely full of water. So that's what they get.
No diving.
That's what they get. Yeah. But one thing, this is topical, but I was approached or was messaged by one of the Pointer brothers, which we need to get on the show for the bike shop. This weekend is Easter. And so if you're in Newcastle and you've got time on Saturday, there are Easter egg hunts at 1 o'clock at Baker Park. Actually, I think it's in the Fieldhouse parking lot for the city. Pointer brothers are having one at 2 o'clock at their shop, which is a third of a mile away from the first one, and Memorial Park is doing theirs at 4 p.m. So you could have
triple up.
You could have diabetes by 5 o'clock.
And there was one last weekend at Summit Lake. So that is 4 major.
So check those
hunts.
Check their respective pages for more information on that. But yeah, I was looking it up. I'm like, oh, and then I think all of them have activities leading up to hunts as well.
Mr.
The weather
Bowman,
looks nice.
You've got some NASCAR updates for us.
Oh, I've got so many NASCAR updates.
Now the show's really going to start.
You guys have been following along for the last year and a half. Chris Galt and I are actually starting a racing podcast on the Wall Network. We haven't come up with a name yet, and he's been putting me off and blowing me off and ghosting me for the last year and a half. He wants to talk about IndyCar. I want to talk about NASCAR, and we just can't come to terms on that. But
you listen to the Dale Jr. Download, then you form your opinions, I assume.
Well, we got free XM satellite radio because we got our oil changed. We've got that again. So now I'd listened.
They just throw it in.
They did. They're like, hey, another 3 months. But Dave Moody was going on, and he had breaking news that the Hendrick camp got hit with 2 more fines. So couple weeks ago, they expelled all 4 of the regular crew chiefs, and now backup crew chiefs are getting thrown out. And
it's going to be like third string emergency quarterbacks in the NFL. If you have to play your third string crew chief, the other 2 crew chiefs should be gone for the year at this point.
I've got opinions about that, but I'll save that for
your racing show.
For the racing podcast. I promised I wouldn't go on about NASCAR stuff. But
did you listen to the Tony Furr interview?
Not yet. We're going to listen to that on the way home.
They were spectacular.
So I listened to Dale's episode that came out today, where they were kind of recapping yesterday's episode. They didn't really say a whole lot yet.
Now, if you follow Andrew on Twitter, it does say that he got a question asked.
Dale Jr. did ask one of my questions on the Ask Dale Jr. segment, and he said, "That's a very good question." So.
Is this in your bio?
Now, it is in my bio. It is on my Twitter bio.
I'll say this.
Now, of course, Joey Molinaro, who is a very good friend of the Ball Soccer Liberty Show and the Wall Network,
repeat visitor.
He is he's got a standing invite on the show all the time. He is on the Dirty Mo Media Podcast Network, which is the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Podcast Network. So we're like sister and brother podcasts over here.
Yeah. So now that I'm on the Boss Hog, I'm pretty much on Dirty Mo right now. Yeah. So
same thing.
But NASCAR season, we're going on week 8 now, 6 different winners in the first 7 races, so that's exciting.
Only 47 more weeks to go.
No, it feels like it. If we ever get through the penalty season here in NASCAR and then the appeals board gets over themselves.
My favorite thing with your NASCAR penalty season is that Hendrick got penalized for the same thing Kaulig Racing got penalized for, and then Hendrick got all the penalties they got all their point problems thrown out. And Kaulig isn't a OG NASCAR team, so they just got screwed.
They got 25 of their 100 points back. So now,
the exact same thing.
So now, Justin Haley is no longer in the negative points for the year. So I think he's still tied for 47th. I think Connor Daly has more points than Justin right now. But NASCAR is my thing. But is this also my time for final thoughts?
Yeah,
too?
This is it.
So there's that going on. But if you're Facebook friends with me or on Twitter and you follow me, you do know I've shared a few times. I've signed up for a 10K race coming up at the end of this month. So my wife, my lovely bride over there, who is keeping our son away from a stash, she decided a couple years ago she wanted to get into running.
Every toddler that comes on the show gets their own bottle of pickled whiskey.
Cool. He does like pickles. So she started running about a year and a half ago, and then she did the Run Disney 10K, and I'm like, you know what? I think I should start running. So now we've both been running together, and we've been finding some races that we wanted to do. So at the end of this month is the Indiana Parkinson's Foundation race. It's called Choose to Move, and it's very close to our family. And so I'm doing that. I'm trying to raise $1,000 for the cause. If you're friends with me, I've shared that. I've shared some of our stories about why that's important to us. And I shared kind of with some of our friends that, we went to Florida a couple weeks ago to see my family. My mom and dad stay down there during the winter, but we had like a different motive because Dad had to have a pretty big surgery over the winter. And then today they turned on his machine. Sorry. Hey. And so he's got a very short road to recovery now. He had a long road of recovery from the brain surgery. They turned on his machine and things are amazing.
Massive improvements
in that space. And so the Indiana Parkinson's Foundation is where they went back in June or July last year to learn about this brain surgery and got the motivation and courage to kind of go do it. So I want to give back to the foundation in whatever way that I can for helping encouraging my family to undergo that very scary and invasive surgery that is now seeming to already help improve my dad's life. So
let's make a deal. Sarah and I will make a donation to this, but I need you to run with Dakota in the Newcastle marathon.
So I thought about running the Newcastle mini marathon, but we're actually going to be in Florida.
You got to shuffle stuff around, but Dakota's never done this before. He needs some coaching.
So
and Zach's going to be out IMSA racing.
Well, hey, buddy. So, we talk about Christy at the beginning of the episode, and she is like Indiana's saint. She was the first donor to my run campaign. And so I did want to say thank you to Christy for being the first donor to my fundraising campaign for this. But when you said, "Hey, I'm going to do the Newcastle Mini," we were trying to figure out like if we could do that. And I think we actually leave for Florida like Sunday. And so we're like, okay, we're going to go camp and then do the race and then leave for Florida. So I don't think we're going to make it to that, but
very difficult. Very difficult news to hear. You have to go to Disney every 3 weeks, or your pass won't work.
The Newcastle Mini in September. What date? When we're in Florida for his birthday. It was like the 21st or something. 16th.
Dakota swears by Allegiant. I think for $13, they'll get at least half of you to Florida. On
Southwest has a good $99 flight deal that we've been picking up on, but you have to. Yeah, we're not going to be here for the Newcastle Mini. Maybe next year.
It's not going to work out. D Squared, do you have any final thoughts for us?
September 16th, 2023. I haven't ran in a week now. So it's Saturday's going to be interesting. I decided to take a week off of my long run because I was going to be out tilling the garden with the push tiller. And it was only a 2-tine tiller. Now I have a substantial garden now, and it was the day after all that rain.
I can't wait to have a half a jar of salsa in October.
The most expensive omelet.
And I was like, I'm not going to be running today if I'm going to be out there. And it was a good decision because I was out there constantly pushing for 3 hours, and I was dead tired afterwards. And then I worked for 13 hours on Sunday, so I didn't wake up on Monday and go work out. So it just kind of threw off the whole rest of the week. But, yeah, so kudos to you for doing a 10K. That's the most that I've never gotten to a 10K yet.
Mentally, I'm stuck at 5.5 miles.
It's tough. It's really tough.
I got up before 25 and ran 11 miles this morning.
Why the hell did we adopt the metric system for running? Can anybody explain that?
I think that,
but only for 5K and 10K.
Yeah. Right.
Everything
it's
else
still 26.2.
Yeah, still 26.2, and then
marathon comes from.
And then
that's ancient
the
Greece.
Miler series, which I did a race Saturday. I got home from towing or whatever, and it was they used to do 5K, 10K, 15K, and now they do 3, 6, and 10 miles. They rounded it up.
Oh, really?
There for a while, I thought the 13.1 stickers on the cars were just big fans of Channel 13, NBC, the digital.
Yeah, except back in the day, there was a Channel 8. Now it is a Channel 13, and Channel 13 will hand out stickers that it's the Channel 13.1 logo.
Yeah.
So they turned into that, yes. 100% turned into that.
That's smart.
All right. Final thoughts from me. Glad we've made it through the winter. The weather's turning better. Hope we get some more rain. The ground's starting to dry out today, Andrew.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna have to mow before too long.
There was one of my neighbors mowed today, and I was like, I'm not giving in, man. I'm not giving in. I have a whole tree in my front yard that's fallen out of a tree, but yeah, no, people are mowing already.
They have been making some improvements down at the skate park. I did notice that
big expansion.
The expansion is happening. Even though they've got Main Street down there completely covered in mud, the existing skate park, the kids don't care and they're still playing. That is the most popular park I've ever seen with youth.
Yes,
it is. You cannot find a time there are not people using.
And then when it gets warm enough that it's not cold in the morning, when I run in the morning, I will see people there at 5:30, 6 a.m. Getting some skating in before they go to work and school. And some of them, people think they're all like, but a lot of them have jobs, and I can tell they have jobs because they have some like real nice cars. They'll show up and with their bike strapped to the top of an Audi or a Volvo or something. So yeah, that is the most. And they're also, I have never had a problem with them like yelling or causing trouble compared to when it was just the basketball courts, and then it was like...
I heard that sometimes they'll smoke the devil's lettuce out there at night.
Dope heads.
I could tell you, I can smell the devil's lettuce all over Newcastle in the morning. Like I go on a morning run, I'm like, wake and bake about every half mile.
My mom works at an elementary school, and she said that there will be parents that pull up and they're like,
I smelled it
you're
in school.
you're smoking weed while you drop your kid off for school. This is insane.
I smelled it in the pickup line a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the cool parents. I bet they were driving a sweet conversion van. Harry Price says because the quarter mile is cool and the metric system is lame. With that, we say thank you guys so very much for being a part of the show. We have a very neat show put together for next Thursday night. Not going to spoil it today, but I will tell you that it has national implications. Wave to the camera as young Jackson Davis is taking our picture. All right. Spectacular. First show we ever did with toddlers in the room. I think it turned out okay. Give yourselves a hand. We will see you.
Because I left Jackson at home.
We will see you next. He's not a toddler. We'll see you next Thursday.
There goes the camera.
The camera's done.
We almost made it.